Hey, it's Drybear. We finished our leveling explorations for the mercenary, and now we're starting on the warrior. So today I have my first leveling build for the warrior. Now, a lot of the complaints that I heard about warrior were just about survivability and clear speed. Much of the warrior's early game is based on slow animations and requiring to evade or block properly, and also just a lack of damage as well. And I would definitely say that after going from mercenary to warrior, I felt the difference quite starkly. And so there's only going to be a couple builds that I think are going to be super useful pre-level 30, but we do know that even in the hardcore leagues that warrior is absolutely shining. There's a lot of warrior play and endgame warrior builds. So again, I asked my audience, what would be more important? Would you like me to work on endgame polished builds that are very viable, or would you like me to rapid fire make a lot of leveling builds and starter builds for classes so you can play all the classes? And everyone wanted leveling builds. That's what we're working on right here. So this first one is going to be a shield focused build. I wanted to see if I could make one, and it's actually surprisingly good when I finally got it working. The challenge with this is it's not going to be the fastest build, but it's incredibly effective. In fact, most of the time fighting all of the bosses through the normal campaign and pushing forward, I never really drop below 100% HP. It's incredibly durable, very effective, and if you build it just right, it's actually very easy to make it suck really hard. And I noticed a lot of people that were complaining about it. The one-handed melee damage and the shield damage is really bad unless you get the right combination of passives, nodes, and stats, and the right gear with the right stats on it. Then it goes really well. But if you mess that up, it can be really horrid. So just make sure you pay attention to the stats explanation and the build explanation when we put it together. The core of this uses shield charge for bonus damage, and then the magma barrier to reflect fire damage on the target. And then you actually just put heavy stun buildup on your melee, and then use bone breaker to cause the AoE to pop there. Then in mid-game, you can actually transition into Shield Wall, which does detonate off of Bone Breaker and also the Magma Barrier breaking as well. And you kind of just walk around like the immortal being that you are, reflecting fire damage, shield charging around, and doing melee strikes as well. It's very safe, it's very simple, you have tons of life regeneration, you can be surrounded by enemies and you just burn right through them. And your only major risk, your really, like the thing you're worried about, is keeping both your shield and your mace up to date as you move through the story. But I'll toss a boss fight in here as well, just to show you what it looks like. If you can time the barrier for magma, you do plenty of good damage. You just kind of just sit on the boss, reflecting and parrying their attacks, doing shield charges over and over, and you stun constantly. And once you get to mid-game and you start building up lots of extra stun buildup as well, you'll be stunning all the freaking time, and you can just, honestly, you just kind of laugh at them. You just run up to the boss and just start beating on them. It's not the fastest boss kills, it's not the fastest clear time, but you're in so much of a safer space and you do decent enough damage that you can clear through most of the things in the game without much trouble. So I wanted to kind of at least start with this for the warrior. So for people that didn't really want to play a high risk two-handed build or an ability build, they could use this instead to just really get through the core campaign, get their ascendancies done, and then actually start working on their real end game build, which is the whole point of a leveling build in my mind. Now, of course, I have a one sheet available for you, which has the core skills that you'll be using and the support gems that go along with them, and a link to some of the best weapon and shield combos that I was able to get while leveling that show you the most important stats. On this, really, for the mace, you're just looking for physical damage, and on the shield, you just need as much armor as physically possible, as it does affect your DPS overall. Then I have a link of the overall stat, the spread for these talent points, which we'll talk about when we get to that section there. And of course, I've built it out in Mobalytics system, just kind of skeleton of it, the abilities with the extra passives there, the important stats on the club, as well as the shield that you'll be using, and then the talent tree down here as well. And if you continue this build onward, you probably will want to go to Warbringer for the extra shield block chance, but this is kind of, I'll leave this link down below for both the one sheet and the calculator as well. Okay, let's talk about the build and how it functions. You're basically going to be using primarily your melee attack. And I know it doesn't sound super fancy, but honestly, most of the warrior abilities have a lot of inherent risks when you're talking about pre-level 30 or just leveling through the campaign in general. Rolling Slam is actually a high DPS ability with good damage. The problem is while you're rolling like this, you're taking damage, and a lot of times, especially if you're trying to quickly clear the campaign, a lot of things will end up just outwardly killing you, which is really rough. So you can build for this. We'll do a slam build as well, but I think for this one being a very safe, easy leveling build, we're just going to be blocking and attacking attacking. And when we get the opportunity, we'll shield charge. And when that's available, and then we'll also be doing the Bone Shatter as well. So one of the cool things about this is because it's so simple, you can rely on the core mechanics of the game. So let's talk about the animation canceling and the functionality of the basic Mace Strike and the shield block while you have a shield equipped. So while you're attacking, your melee attacks are very fast. You're able to do decent damage. For this, we're also on the Mace Strike going to put Ruthless, which every 5th attack gives crazy stun buildup, and Overpower, which gives a flat increase to stun buildup. So what'll happen on bosses specifically is you'll just be able to whack them, build up tons of stun, and when they get too primed for stun for Bone Shatter, we'll be able to detonate that and do crazy damage from that, and then we'll punish them while they're stunned and start that process over again. So you'll be doing that. The main thing you want to know about to make this a smooth process, because this one is definitely more of a like finesse, a technical kind of build, is the fact that your shield block is actually a very efficient animation cancel. You can cancel almost any animation in the game fast and very effectively using the shield block. Using the rolling slam is a great example. So I can do like this into a block, 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 I can block, I can block, I can attack a block, I can block. And you want to do this as often as possible. When the damage hits, you want to block, block, hit, block, hit, block. And you'll be doing that pretty often, and that will actually keep you safe. You'll take almost no damage as long as you have a decent shield and some armor on you as well. So you can, as soon as there's a problem, just watch the animations, and it feels very much like you're playing a Souls-like or just like an action RPG that's like more three-dimensional, as you'll be able to swap to the block at almost any time and very easily avoid it. They also did a hot fix yesterday, which changed it so that when you have a chance to block, your block chance on your shield, this one was only blocking from the front. Whether it's active blocking or passive blocking. Passive blocking is your chance to block when you have a shield equipped and you're not actively blocking. And then your active block is when you're raising your shield and holding it in front of you, and those have different block chances. They changed it yesterday in a hotfix so that the chance to block, the passive blocking, is 360 degrees around your character at all times. So this will just give you a permanent increase to defense while you have it up, and as long as you're active blocking well, you can do some good damage there. The next thing that you need to know about is going to be from the Herald skill as well. So we're going to be running with Magma Barrier, and this one is basically a parry mechanic for the shield. So when we have this equipped and activated, so once you get to Act 1 and you clear to get your Spirit bonus, you can have this activated, and this basically is for the first second or so when you bring your shield up, it'll be lit up with fire. You see that? And if you hold it, continue holding it, it'll fade. If someone hits you while you're active blocking while that fire is up, it'll launch a big cone of fire out, and it has a very short cooldown. So you can actively block basically almost everything that comes at you. And you'll notice, like in the boss footage that I showed, you can do this on bosses as well. You can whack, block, whack, block, whack, block, whack, block, and just keep doing that. And every time you hit that block window, you'll do a bunch of damage, and we can scale that up pretty easily by adding in fire and fusion. And we can even put close combat for even more damage on this. Close combat gives you 25% more attack damage when they're close to you. It's a block. They're gonna be close to you because they had to hit your shield in order to do it, except for ranged attacks, which you'll be able to actively block as well. And that is kind of where you live. You'll be able to do that and build up tons of stun. Anytime you see the Bone Shatter effect where they glow, hit them with the Bone Shatter, it does a bunch of damage, and usually Bone Shatter will just kill everything on your screen that's within range. For Bone Shatter, I like running Execute and Impact Shockwave. This gives you an aftershock on the heavy stun, which is really good. Gives you a little more AoE, and also gives you more damage against low life enemies. Usually by the time enemies have built up stun, unless they're a boss, they will be low life, which means that the explosion from the Bone Shatter is even stronger and just kind of keeps you safe that way. Then later on, when you get to like 20 to 30, when you start unlocking your ascendancies and things like that, you can start putting in Shield Wall. Shield Wall is actually a very easy skill. It gives you a whole bunch of damage bonus, and actually I've been able to detonate this with the Reflect from the Magma Barrier, but also the explosion from the Bone Shatter as well. So when you put the shield wall up, now this does break on slam, so if you want to put rolling slam in there to detonate, you can. If you want to put leaping slam in there to detonate, you can, and it does decent damage as well because the shield wall also scales off of the power of your shield, just like shield charge, so you'll be able to get some good damage off that. And again, when we have a big fat shield, our shield charge is incredibly strong, and also our shield wall will be very strong as well, which gives us a good flexible amount of damage, and we have tons of defense to boot. For the the start of the game, I think you want to come down here, get the armor and the regeneration, and then the armor and regeneration and strength. That's going to be a big boon for you, especially since you're going to be up front blocking and meleeing a lot. Having that regen is going to make it so you don't have to use flasks as much, and also gives you just enough passive regen to be able to survive it. I wouldn't go this way first, but I would come over here and grab these. On this build, I needed an extra dexterity and extra intelligence just to be able to hit minimum requirements on gear, and then I would beeline straight down to this setup of nodes. This will give you a good amount of physical damage from these four. It'll allow you to break armor, which we're not using currently, but you could work into the build if you wanted to. There's two very strong armor break abilities you could use for the warrior. So grab these for the physical damage, and then come down here and grab this. What this does is these three nodes, it'll give you 30% increased damage while holding a shield, and this basically affects all of your attack skills. As long as you have a shield equipped, it gives you 30% damage, and on top of the extra survivability we have here, will give us a nice damage boost with the physical damage here, and all the damage you're doing is physical anyways. Then we grab this node, which gives you 1% damage for every 1% block that you have. And that means that anytime you then start grabbing increased block chance nodes, these become damage nodes as well. Not only do they give you survivability, chance to block, reduce damage, avoid dying, but it also gives you a double up, a double dip on damage as well. So this is now a 5% block chance and a 5% damage node, 5% block chance, 5% damage node. Then we're going to come over here and we'll grab things like 5%, 5%. This is going to be a 10% block chance, 10% damage, and it gives us more survivability, better shield usage, and overall damage as well. Then once we cut over from the block area, you want to beeline down to this little intersection here, and there's a couple great ways to split off from this that will give us good damage, survivability, life on block, as well as stun buildup and more damage as well. So the big one here is this node right after the intersection. You can come over here, you get 5% damage in block, as well as more defense from shield. By the way, this does not add damage to the shield charge, unfortunately. It just gives you more defenses for yourself. And then you can also get the 12% damage in block plus 6 life gained when you block, which gives you a lot of survivability. Then we can also come down here and grab the increased attack damage, and then stun build up and attack damage. Over here, we can grab melee damage, and then increase build up and AoE. Keep in mind that the melee damage will only affect some of your skills and will give kind of big damage to like Bone Shatter, but not necessarily the shield skills themselves. We can grab this jewel node, which is incredibly powerful. If you can get a good jewel early on, it makes a big difference. Getting more stun build up here, as well as recover when you heavy stun a rare or unique enemy. This is 20% life, so you'll heal 20% every time you heavy stun or stagger a boss, and then you get break armor if you want to run this as well. And then you can come over here and grab these. This gives you another 30% or 20% attack skill damage when you're holding a shield. The attack speed is a little bit nice. You can skip this if you really want to, but you also get attack damage per armor on your shield as well, which scales up as you build more into the mid game. These two nodes are going to have a smaller impact in the beginning and then larger later on, but gives you that kind of value, at least if you want to work towards it. Then from this intersection, you can actually cut down here and grab some very quick jewel socket, as well as more stun buildup. So this is going to be another 60% stun buildup as well, and you can even gain endurance charges for late game endurance builds that warriors have in droves right now. But having even more stun buildup is going to be great for the Bone Shatter, because Bone Shatter just is incredibly strong. It scales so well throughout the whole course of the game that it's worth kind of looking at and seeing. Now, as far as where to go next with this build is pretty much built just for completing the campaign. You would probably find some damage loss towards like Act 2 Cruel as you push towards the end of the campaign, and that's when you would want to start transitioning into your end game build. It doesn't mean that a shield-based shield charge build wouldn't be effective. It's just I have my doubts on that until I actually try it and test it. This would just be a very easy coast way to get through if you want to play a warrior without having to worry about your dodges and timings, and just be able to just push through with high survivability and good enough damage to just coast through. Then this would be the option for you, and this is where we're going to start for the warrior. But there's a couple other builds we could do. There's some nice fire builds, a totem build as well, and some slam builds and two-handed builds that I think are going to work great for the warrior that we'll work on next. But I wanted to start here at least for a very safe build to people that wanted to try it. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.